So what made you come to Kuwait?
When you're driving and you come to the fork in the road, take it.
And it's actually scary in a sense that a lot of people will lose their jobs because of AI.
There are people in life that talk about doing things, and there's people in life that do stuff.
How can small businesses implement, AI?
And definitely for any small business, the power of marketing is really important. So definitely,
it's actually the most important.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, the most important thing. Do you think AI should be taught in schools?
AI should be taught as if it's as if it's math, as if it's biology.
Thank you very much for joining. Today we're going to be interviewing an expert in AI and geospatial, and he has experience over 2 decades, and we're going to be learning a lot in especially how AI can be applied to business, actually. And we're going to learn more about his story and his upbringing. So thank you, Dr. Scott, for joining.
Yeah, thank you, Suleiman. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. So let's first start with the your interest in AI and geospatial. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so if you're asking me about my interest in geospatial, we're going to have to go back a ways. You're going to have to kind of bear with me.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, I was always interested in maps. I love the maps. I love looking at all different kinds of maps. I love looking at maps of faraway places. And in my mind, imagining what was life like there, because you always get this, people, you're told what it's like somewhere, you're told what it's like somewhere else, but what is it really like? Oftentimes it's not what you're told. So then kind of like fast forwarding a touch. So maybe throughout my childhood, I was blessed that I grew up in State College, Pennsylvania, which happened to be the town where a major research university, Penn State University, is. This was my hometown. My hometown is very everything is dedicated to the university, basically. The university is the major employer. Maybe the second biggest employer is AccuWeather, which is the world's leading provider of weather data, weather forecasts, and my friends, many of my friends, their fathers, their mothers were experts in their field, solving literally out there, solving world problems. So this was very much a blessing for me because it was more, I wouldn't say easy, but more straightforward for me to surround myself with quality people, like good people, quality people who wanted to do something with their lives. One of the reasons we were in State College was my parents. So my parents both went to Penn State. They got their degrees at Penn State. They met at Penn State, and then my father, he got a job as a researcher at Penn State. So then we stayed there. So it was really, a blessing to be there. So then, fast forwarding more, when I entered college, I wasn't really quite sure, what I wanted to do in my education. When I was in high school, I was really good at math. My mother was a math teacher. She taught at the local high school in, geometry, algebra. My father was an engineer, so I'm kind of like, I guess, we say like, it was in my blood a little bit. My brother's an engineer. But I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. When you enter college in the US, you have to take general education courses. You have to take, a range of different courses, biology, mathematics, English. You have to get a well-rounded education, which actually now fast forwarding, maybe I'll come back to this. I think is extremely important now that 25, 30 years removed. So one of the courses I taught was a geography course, a map making course, mapping. So I took this map making course. Little did I know, this is my hometown university. Little did I know that the geography department was the best in the country, and arguably the best in the world. So then one of the first classes I took with map making, it's one of those I go in, okay, here's the syllabus. Your professor, his name is Alan McEachran. oh, you need to go buy the textbook written by Alan McEachran. So one of these scenarios. It's like, okay, my professor wrote the textbook on this subject. So this is one of the things. Another one of my professors, she also ended up being my academic advisor, Sydney Brewer. So she's also one of the leading experts on map making. They call it, the field is called cartography. I had a full circle moment more recently with Cindy Brewer. So she spent a lot of times, she was focused on visualization. How do you visualize data, and specifically with maps? She did a lot of research with colors. What are the colors that people are able to distinguish? What are the best colors for representing data on maps? So now, it was only maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I'm doing a project with AI, coding in Python. When you're doing data analysis in Python, a lot of times you want to plot your results on charts, graphs, and usually you're using libraries called, one of them is Matplotlib, another one is Seaborn. So I'm going and I'm doing these charts, and I'm like thinking, okay, what's going to be some of my good color choices? What color palette am I going to choose? I'm looking at the documentation, and there's Cindy Brewer's color schemes that she came up with. So in a nutshell, these were the types of people I surrounded myself with. I was really blessed. Penn State, it was a we say idyllic place, Happy Valley. We had some of the brightest minds. We also had some of the best athletes in the world because college sports is big in the U.S. So we had some of my friends, their fathers were ex-American football players, they played in the Olympics in volleyball, things like this. So it was really a wonderful, place to grow up. So then, going back, so this is kind of like my interest in geospatial, how it started. And little did I know too at that time that, geospatial is well beyond map making. Geospatial is about analyzing data, uncovering patterns with data that happens over space. So now you're asking me also, what's my AI? Like, how did AI come about? So with geospatial, the very first Earth observation satellite was put up by NASA in 1972, I believe. It was called Landsat 1, 1972. And when you put up satellites, nowadays we have fleets of satellites up there observing the Earth, solving our most pressing issues related to climate, related to human issues, things like this. So disaster management, things like this. So when you're collecting data from satellites, when you have ubiquitous GPS devices that are collecting data, when you have when people talk and they go on social media, a lot of times they talk about places. It is very, very easy to get big data. It's very, very easy to get massive data. Some of these satellite companies, Maxar, I think the statistic is on a yearly basis, they collect 10 petabytes of data from satellites. And I'm not sure if they're the, sort of
10 what?
Petabytes.
What is that for the It's like
10 with lots of zeros. So if you think about, what's a typical hard drive is 1 terabyte, it's 1,000 of those.
It's much bigger than
10 petabytes. Okay. So so obviously this is beyond the ability of a human to analyze. You can't analyze this amount of data. No, even if we got every human in the world, we can't analyze this through manual processes. So AI and geospatial are natural fits. Going back to my undergraduate degree, I mean, this was in the 1990s. AI goes back a lot longer than people think. So this was in the 1990s. I had my professors at Penn State teaching us how to use unsupervised machine learning models to classify satellite imagery, into farmlands, urban areas, things like this. Now we've come a long way from that, but machine learning, artificial intelligence, geospatial, they fit very nicely. So
the difference between AI and machine learning, there is a difference between them. I know that AI is more sophisticated. It's more
No. Okay. So AI. So people usually draw these bubbles.
yeah.
So there's AI is a bigger bubble. Then within AI is machine learning. Within machine learning is deep learning, and then within deep learning you got nowadays generative AI. AI. So in the early days. So if you ever want to know a little bit about the early stages of artificial intelligence computing, though, there's a very this amazing movie, Hollywood movie. I forget the name, but it's about Alan Turing. So Alan Turing nowadays is famous. He's a famous. He was a mathematician. He was a British mathematician, and this was during World War II. And he's credited with saving millions of lives, potentially millions of lives, shortening the war because he used very early computing techniques to break the Nazis' code for transmitting messages. And it's a fascinating story too, because he did this all in complete, it was highly classified. So then after he was done, nobody knew about this except for one or two people in Britain. He went on, he had an extensive career in artificial intelligence. There's what's known as the Turing test, is a test to measure artificial intelligence. And this is named after him. And nobody knew he was basically a war hero. Nowadays, Britain went back, and even after his death that things became unclassified, and people are like, wow, this is a pretty amazing story. It's an amazing enough story that they made a Hollywood movie about this. But some of the early stages of artificial intelligence were things called expert systems. It was a lot of, we say rule-based systems, complicated rule-based systems. Then, machine learning, it kind of figures out its own rules. So training, usually the predominant method in machine learning is called supervised learning, where you give it examples, tell the model what you want, and the model learns the patterns. Within that is deep learning. So this is, and I'll talk about this, later in our talk. So deep learning is now the I wouldn't say it's the predominant method, because non-deep learning is still widely used because it's much faster. Actually, the models are much faster to train. But deep learning, given more data, we can find out lots of. It can do a lot better job given more data and lots of labeled examples. And then within that, you have generative AI. So this is kind of how it works.
Okay. And you said you're concentrated on two different fields. I think it's geospatial and AI. Was that your focus on research focus, or the PhD focus? Was that focused on both of them together?
Yeah. So skipping ahead a touch. So my PhD. So I took a non-traditional path in my education. I worked. I finished my bachelor's. I worked for a little bit. Then I got my master's. Then I worked for a little bit. But then I went back into academia, but in a research setting. By the time I did my PhD, I was kind of like already a pretty well-established researcher. And my PhD was focused on text. So this was maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. We had a lot of successful projects with extracting knowledge from the vast amount of text that we have. We were focused kind of on places people talk about, using techniques like natural language processing. Some of the early large language models, you hear the now large language model, the things behind generative AI. We were using some of the early large language models. They pale in comparison to today's large language models. So yeah, it was my PhD was focused on how do you use some of these AI analytical techniques, natural language processing, to extract knowledge from text, unstructured data.
Can you give us like a small example of what that means?
Sure. So I was finishing up my my PhD during the pandemic. Previously, we had done a lot of research. I'd done a lot of research with extracting, and actually it was really successful research. We had a lot of success with this. Extracting places, places people are talking about, why are they talking about those places from text, and then mapping them, visualizing them. We had some projects funded by both the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency in the US and the Department of Homeland Security, because social media was becoming a much more popular means in the time of crises. So a flood happens, an earthquake happens, people go and they start tweeting about it, or they start sharing knowledge. And a lot of times when a crisis happens, it's tough to get information, what's actually going on in the ground comprehensively. And these funding agencies were looking for better ways to know what was actually going on in the ground. And so we had some successful projects with exactly this, trying to use social media data, news articles to get this bigger picture of what was going on in times of crises. Now, I didn't do too much work with this, but a second thing that geospatial technologies is there's a lot of research with is movement analysis. Sometimes they call it trajectory analysis. Analyzing things that are moving. It can be people with taxis. What's the best route for a taxi? Google Maps, what's the best route? But if you have a fleet of taxis, if you're tracking those taxis, you're tracking your Talabat drivers. What are some areas, doing analysis to find what are some areas that maybe more accidents are happening, maybe there's a better route, things like this. How do you get the food to the person, there on time, the best way, most efficiently? There's with movement analysis, it's a broad field. There's lots and lots of success. Tracking shipments, flights, FedEx, things like this. Your traffic analysis. But I kind of, for then going ahead to my research, we had a lot of the success with text, but then this movement analysis, almost all of it relied on very precise trajectories. So tracking things with GPS. So you'd have a really specific track. So I saw like a gap where what I tried to do was deriving more information about things or people moving, but through text. And at that time, like I said, it was the pandemic. There was lots of talk about movement, or actually the lack thereof. That people, there was travel restrictions, things like this. So what I was able to do was go out, search a whole bunch of news sites for news articles, social media about people talking about travel restrictions, places they wanted to go, things like this, and put all of this into a visual analytic, web map. So you can go, you can explore, you can click on a country, you can see where are the places that people are talking about that they want to go to, where are the places that people are actually going to. I even did, there's a small field called negation detection. So negated things. When people say, I don't want to go there, I don't like this food. Okay, so detecting the negation. So I even implemented a model to detect that so that I could kind of say, then I was able to go and say, oh, there's you can visualize some of the travel bans based upon this text data. So now even to, if I ever had the opportunity to go back to some of this work, I think in my mind, it could have a lot of potential with detecting the movement of illegal things like drugs, say like illegal shipping of, protected wildlife, things like this, because these are things that you're not going to get precise precise GPS of drugs, sort of like this. But then if you can get you can collect some information about people talking about this stuff, then you can analyze it and find some of the patterns.
I see. Yeah, that's actually interesting. You actually worked in different sectors like health and oil and gas, and I think the other one is security as well.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, for example, health, how it can be used in health, and maybe through the pandemic or something? Did you ever do anything about geospatial?
Yeah. So again, like geospatial related to AI. So back at my days at Penn State, we had multiple projects related to public health. So we had one with the U.S. funded by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So that was about mapping cancer rates and finding patterns, not just mapping, but providing people a visual interface for exploring patterns with cancer rates and other data that could possibly contribute to, okay, in this area, cancer rates are higher than other areas. Why? And we provide lots of information to help the experts go in and analyze, try to figure out, some of the patterns. So that was one project. We had another project related to public health, which was maybe related a little bit to my dissertation about extracting places that people are talking in related to public health disease outbreaks and finding connections between places and specific towards diseases. Probably one of my, I guess it's prominent in my mind because this was only 2 years. Actually, we wrote a paper about this. It was only published last year. So it's, publishing process sometimes takes a while. So I was really fortunate. I collaborated with the World Health Organization. So I worked with their office, the regional office that covers the vast majority of the African continent. So if you think about it, this office's challenge of trying to mitigate diseases throughout such a vast, diverse, ever-changing landscape, it's a challenge, to say the least. So this was it was a wonderful. I enjoyed it so much. They kind of like, in a sense, gave me data. They gave me some of their data sets and said, "What can you do?" And I worked with them. I worked really closely with epidemiologists, some of the decision makers. What we ended up doing was using some of the Earth observation data, so data about temperature, data about precipitation. There's also global demographic data, things like population distributions, different variables, features that affect the spread of disease, putting all of this into a machine learning model, along with a record of disease cases, and being able to then predict where are going to be hotspots in disease in the future, in the coming. When you think about artificial intelligence and machine learning, you might think of future predictions. So that's obviously one of the major advantages. But one of the other major advantages of machine learning is the models, the training process gives you information about which of the variables are most important towards, the goal, predicting disease. So then we were able to do this really nice proof of concept where we showed good results with predicting some of the diseases. We showed really interesting spatial patterns, hotspots with some of the diseases, and we were able to even zero in on, okay, so this particular temperature is really important towards cholera. Precipitation is really important towards malaria. Now, some of the findings that we found are known. It's not like some of the things were like completely new to people. But the power of doing this is doing some of this analysis at scale. So across the entire continent, this vast, diverse area, I can predict where are going to be my new hotspots for a particular disease, and also to doing this prediction. And once you have the model, doing this prediction in a fraction of a second. This is another very powerful thing. In the past, some of these predictions would take months, years to develop, but making a prediction in a fraction of a second, because our world is ever changing. So these are some of the, big advantages of artificial intelligence.
Tell us about one particular disease and where it's, mostly spread around, like the area, like one of the projects that you worked on.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about one of the diseases and where?
Yeah. So this particular project and this data, we kind of in the end concluded there's so much left to do. There's so much you can do. One of the things, so in the end, we chose 4 diseases to work on in this kind of like proof of concept: cholera, malaria, yellow fever, and meningitis. So in general, maybe you can point to the paper. The paper is out there. You can get details. But in general, malaria is much more concentrated in the tropical regions of Africa. So it seems obvious it's kind of more affected by rain, precipitation. But then, what was a very different spatial pattern was yellow fever was much more in the Sahel region of Africa. So, kind of when you're getting into the grasslands, things like this. So these are this is some of our findings. But then, so in addition to seeing these overall patterns, the analysis produces, so hotspot analysis, it's a type of, technically, I think it's called spatial autocorrelation. It's in statistics, you have autocorrelation. This is spatial autocorrelation. So how well do cases cluster spatially? So you get hotspots, you get cold spots, but then you also get outliers. And sometimes these outliers are even more valuable to you. So I have this area that has very low cases, but it's surrounded by an area of high cases. So then it lets the experts say, why is this? They have to dive deeper. So these are known as outliers. You have a whole area of okay, there's no disease here, but then you got this small area you've got a disease. So it lets the experts go and say, why is this happening? So this is and also too. I mean, again, there's so much more with hotspot analysis. You can do so much more too. We kind of aggregated everything, but if you left things by time, you can see trends. This area is growing. This area, the growing disease, is growing. This one's diminishing. This one is sporadic. These are some of the things. Something like a sporadic hotspot could lead you to realize, okay, maybe the disease is, in some areas of Africa where you have a lot of, you have the rainy season and you have the dry season. During the rainy season, people tend to migrate, migratory populations out into the rural areas to do farming. But then in the dry season, they come back into the cities because it's farming is less of an option. And some of these migration patterns have a really big effect on disease spread, because you're getting a lot of people close to each other. So this is, there's so much to do, so much left to do. So it was a wonderful project, exciting project. Yeah.
So what made you come to Kuwait?
So I told you a lot about my, kind of what I was doing previously. I was 13 years as a researcher, was a assistant professor of research at Penn State. I had thoughts like, maybe I'd retire there. Maybe this would be my job, when I retire, who knows? It was one of those like, life comes at you fast moments. I happened to meet the lady who is now my wife. So she was sent by Kuwait University to get her PhD there. I saw her. Next thing I know, I'm flying to Kuwait. It seemed to happen so fast, but it was not quite like that, that fast. But next thing I know, I'm flying to Kuwait. to talk to her father, a Kuwaiti father, about having his blessing to marry his daughter. He refused to talk to me. So yeah. So then I came back. It was a little while. I came back a second time. Okay, then we talked, we chatted. He's like, oh, maybe, okay, maybe. And then I go back. Then the third time I come, a little while later, I brought my mother, and he says, okay, yeah, you can marry my daughter, but you have to come to Kuwait. We want you to come. And of course, my wife, she wanted to come to Kuwait as well. And we shook on it. And I'm a man of my word. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. I came to Kuwait. The rest is history. So now we have, we'll say I've been here about 6 years. We have 2 amazing children, Yusuf and Miriam. You can call me, since we're in Kuwait, you can call me Bu Yusuf.
Bu Yusuf.
And my wife, she's I don't know how, but somehow she's an incredible mother and also an incredible professor and researcher. Maybe someday you can talk to her. So anyways, this is kind of like how I ended up in Kuwait about 6 years ago. And now at this point, it's what we say like my adopted home.
Yeah, that's interesting actually. Yeah. So what is your story with Abdullah Salem University? How did it start?
Yeah, so Abdullah Salem University. So this is a new university in Kuwait. For people that don't know, for the longest time, Kuwait had one public university, one state school, Kuwait University. It's massive. Have you been to the new campus, Shadadiya? It's beautiful.
Yeah, actually, I did my master's.
It was in Shadadiya?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in Shadadiya.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's a gorgeous university. And then they started a new university, Abdullah Salem. So they're just starting out. It's a big undertaking. You're okay in the matter of a few years, you're going to start a university. If you think about it, universities are they're kind of like medium-sized cities. How do you do this? So one of the things, so I was helping them out. So I consulted for the vice president's office of the vice president. So one of their goals is to develop world-class research centers. I think they have about 10 of them. I think 10 in the plans. So we began with, how do you go about doing this? How do you lay the, we'll say the infrastructure, the groundwork. So we started with AI and the data science, thinking about that. What are some of the requirements for a research center? And so these, some of the things you have to think about. So where is it going to go? What's going to be the buildings? Once you see the buildings, what are the networking capabilities? If you're doing AI, you got big data. What are the networking capabilities? What is going to be where do you want to go in the future with networking capabilities? If you have a connection that's 1 gigabit per second, you've got universities that have 400 gigabit per second that you're going to be competing against, connection speeds. So these were some of the things we're thinking about. If you're doing artificial intelligence, you need lots of storage. You need fast storage. You need GPUs for processing. I can mention GPUs later. You need what's going to be your cloud computing strategy, because you want to do some of your computing on premise, but you also do nowadays some of your computing no matter what is going to be in the cloud. In my field, using satellite data. Some of the data sets are so massive you can't. It's not feasible to download them. So you have to do computing in the cloud, your analytics. So these were some of the things I was helping lay the foundations for them. In addition, I gave some trainings one training with generative AI with the staff, and overall, helping them decide specifically on some of the computing hardware to buy. So it was a wonderful experience. It was nice to be in I like that academic environment.
You started there around what year?
Abdullah Salem?
Yeah.
No, this was more recently. So this was only last year. I I started with them.
Oh, but before that,
Okay.
what were you doing? And
So when I came to Kuwait, I worked at Kuwait Oil Company, KOC, on a project. It was on a specific project to map all of the infrastructure of the entire oil fields. Where are the pipelines, where are the wells, everything in the oil field, structures, some of the barriers, roads, what's underground, underground wires, electricity. So it was called the Infrastructure Master Plan. So I led a group of developers try to automate some of the processes with mapping. So this was a really nice introduction to oil and gas. One thing I did with kind of a little bit later with AI, specifically with AI, was using satellite imagery to train a machine learning model to detect oil spills in the Gulf. Sometimes you have oil spills. Sometimes they're significant. The idea is to minimize them. Sometimes you have small ones. Sometimes you have natural, basically oil leaking from the subsurface. And so being able to track any sort of oil spill was with artificial intelligence is really really powerful. So this was something I did. I left there after about 3 years, mainly because it was, like I said, it was a really specific task, and I felt like I can do much more. And so then I moved on to some of the work I said with World Health Organization. After I worked with World Health Organization, then in addition to I'm currently doing some work with Rochester Institute of Technology in the U.S., RIT. Developing, they're starting an online geospatial certificate program. So getting a certificate in some of the geospatial technologies online, and I'm developing 2 of the courses for them. One is visualization, and the one's data science. So kind of like all of this happened, and then I kind of went to Abdullah Salam.
Tell us about so after Abdullah Salam, or you're doing them together. You're doing.
I really wanted to. Actually, I really tried, but then Gulf Bank is. Yeah. So
story of Gulf Bank.
Yeah. So I started with Gulf Bank, but and that's kind of like it's a little bit too much to try to do both. But I really wanted to, and they wanted me to continue on, but it was a little bit too much, so I had to stop with Abdullah Salam. Unfortunately. So. Okay.
So tell us your story with.
Just going back to a little bit with Abdullah Salam. Going back to basically they're starting a university. This is quite an endeavor. So something I was extremely impressed was the leadership. It was a really nice experience working directly with 2 of the leaders. These are hardworking people. These are people that do stuff. These are smart people. These are humble people. They don't get this big ego. I was extremely impressed, and I have nothing. I am confident of the future with Abdullah Salam, that and also too, I would say to Kuwait, this was a wonderful step, because in my mind, having a second university, it will have nothing but advantages in the sense that having a friendly competition will raise everybody. So I really wish them best. The other thing I really liked, what they're doing at Abdullah Salam, was they have a business innovation group. So how do you take some of the ideas that are generated in academia and turn this into business solutions? This was something that was a real big, we talked about a lot back in the States. Look at Google. At some points in recent times, it's the richest company in the world, biggest, most powerful. Google started, the 2 founders, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, they were PhD students at Stanford University. They had this amazing idea that developing an algorithm. So at that time, you had search engines like Yahoo, where you'd have to go through all these links, find. But they had this idea: if somebody entered a search, how do you bring back what they're actually looking for? And they had this algorithm called PageRank. So, but this is great, but it's a research project, But one of the main reasons that Google is where it is today because they were at Stanford University, who had an amazing, mindset about business innovation, how to turn research into business. So this is, going back to, I really like what they're doing at Abdullah Salem.
So tell us about the Gulf Bank journey. How did it start?
I guess, I guess it kind of ends up to be one gentleman. So I was communicating with one gentleman. He's the head of the data innovation group. He's one of my kind of people. So he got a PhD in computer science from one quality school in the U.S. When I talked to him, he talked about all the data they have. And if you're going to do machine learning, artificial intelligence, data analytics, you have to have a lot of data. Two, he talked about, we can do this, but we don't have the resources right now. So having this really nice vision, about what can be done. And I guess what impressed me the most about him was he does. He's, despite what I said, he's the head of the data innovation group. He's we say, troubleshooting some of the people's problems. He's developing solutions. These are my kind of people. There's this, generalization. People say it sometimes. It's, black and white. Obviously, it's, usually people are shades of gray. But in general, they say there are people in life that talk about doing things, and there's people in life that do stuff. So this is, I think he's one of my kind of people that he does stuff. So I'm looking forward with, it's only been 2 months or so, but I'm looking forward to some of the things we can do. Especially like I said, they have lots of data and lots of possibilities.
Yeah. How can you use AI in the banking sector? Tell us.
Yeah. AI is.
It can be used in many ways.
Yeah, exactly. You can't. So this is something. AI is a tool. AI is a tool. So looking at technology, usually I group technology into, especially technology related to data. I group them into data storage tools, data analytics tools. I usually throw in the AI into data analytics, and then you've got visualization tools. So it's a ubiquitous tool. It can be used for almost anything. So you have generative AI. It's certainly the hype, the buzz, but then machine learning has, I think one of the very first cases, one of the most, the oldest cases of machine learning being very, very successful in production is credit card fraud detection. In 1990s, I'm using my credit card. I get a little pop-up saying, "Is this really your purchase?" This is a machine learning model that's saying this is not like your normal spending patterns. So this is machine learning. So machine learning has a long history in finance and banking. But then you have lots of, you can apply it to any, within a bank you have HR. So AI can help you with hiring. It can tell you what are the candidates are the best. It can help you with in IT, some of the cybersecurity issues. Cybersecurity is getting more and more complex these days, and what we need are experts. It's not going to be like, okay, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to train a machine learning model, and I'm going to stop cybersecurity problems. But what you can do is have an expert who understands the data, explores the data, applies different data science techniques, artificial intelligence, to come up with some of these solutions for the cybersecurity issues. Detecting where are all our threats coming from, what are they like? And then core business functions. So actual banking, credit card fraud detection, detecting unusual activity, things like this. Machine learning is good at detecting patterns, but it's like I said earlier with the outliers. It's very good at detecting outliers, things that are not normal. And then moving to marketing. So almost every business has a marketing department. Targeted marketing. So who are the customers we should try to target? With marketing in the past, a lot of, what do you say? The simple solution was to break people down by some of the simple demographics. Okay, so the people who live here will market to them in a certain way. The males will market to them a certain way. The females will market them a certain way. Maybe you get into some of the things like their income. By income brackets, will market to them a certain way. But with artificial intelligence, we're coming up with much, much more sophisticated ways instead of sending an email out to every single male customer, we can target specific people that will have a lot better chance of purchasing our products. So it's all inclusive. And the companies in the future that are going to be the most successful are the ones that are going to embrace this fact that AI will be part of the organization as a whole.
And that's one of the things, actually. But this is my other question: is how can small businesses implement AI? How can they start with it? Maybe.
Yeah. Well, okay. So for example, so look at you. What I'm gathering you don't have a programming experience. Maybe if you do, I'd be surprised.
I do, but it's a little bit, not too much though. Yeah.
Okay. So looking at the idea of programming, building AI or machine learning models, there's lots of tools these days that you could use. AWS, Google Cloud, they have tools that without coding, you can build a machine learning model, train that model, and make predictions on data. This is kind of like with the machine learning. Generative AI. Obviously, generative AI is so popular because everybody can use it. It doesn't take a genius to use generative AI. They have this term these days, prompt engineering. I think it's the most, I don't know, in my mind, it's the most overblown term. You're learning how to communicate with a chatbot. So I think a prompt engineer is a little too much to call it this. But so this is one of the reasons why generative AI is so successful, is because everyday people can interact with it. But then there's lots of to be honest, there's lots of machine learning tools, like I mentioned, that you can interact with. And if you want to do something even more, like going back to what I'm saying with the programming, if you have a little bit of knowledge with programming, if you're somebody that doesn't, but you take one of these courses on programming, you get some of the very basics. Generative AI can write a lot of the code for you, and it can write code. You can kind of you have to correct some of the issues with it. It'll you in this day and age, compared to somebody who was starting out even 10 years ago, you'll be able to do 10 times or more work progress than that person 10 years ago. So this is as a small business, kind of, and definitely for any small business, the power of marketing is really important. So definitely,
it's actually the most important.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, the most important thing. Yeah.
This is something I learned in research. Actually, you can do amazing stuff in research, but if nobody knows about it, the impact will be so small. The same applies for business. You can have an amazing product, but if you don't market it and get it to the right people, you're not going to make that impact. Now, maybe. So because this is so important, there's lots and lots of generative AI tools for marketing, specifically towards marketing. So maybe this is one of the best for a small business owner.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about the GCC countries in general, compared with the whole world, with the AI usage. And you spent time in the US and you spent time here in Kuwait. What differences do you see in AI?
So the GCC countries, I feel like they've been excellent at adopting, at using AI. I think something that they need to put a strong emphasis on is going from AI users to AI creators. So looking at some of now with generative AI, what's one of the easiest things you can do as, say you're a large corporation, what's one of the easiest things you can do to implement AI, generative AI specifically? You can take ChatGPT or Google or Microsoft's Enterprise Edition, the one that's secure, and you can throw all your business data in there, and you can get a much better generative AI. You can get generative AI that helps your staff solve some of the problems. But this, everybody else is going to do this. This is not going to give you a competitive advantage, really, because all your competitors are going to do this as well. So this is, going from, my particular example, maybe it's a little bit towards an AI creator, but it's only scratching the surface of what's possible. The organizations, even throughout the world, the organizations that are doing the best with implementing AI, in analytics in general, I guarantee you there is data that is untouched. They're just not able to do all the analytics that could potentially help that business. So if you invest in your staff, let them learn about AI, let them move from this AI users to AI creators as best you can. So if you're a CEO and you have a MBA, okay, you're not going to go and try to train a machine learning model, but you can learn about it, and you can collectively as a whole learn about AI, so that you can hire the right people to move to have people in place implement AI in your own organization, not just use outside tools. Because again, if you're a small business, using some of these tools, it'll help you move forward. But if you're a large business, all your competitors are going to be doing this. They're going to all be, putting all their data into a generative AI and to help all. So you're not going to really be getting a competitive advantage. So it's about having the people. It's funny how we're talking so much about AI, but in the end, it's going to be about the people. It's going to be about the people, having the right people, having people that are willing to learn. Things are changing so quickly. We don't know what's coming next. We had generative AI. Now the popular thing is AI agents. So not too long from now. So I'm saying that usually there's data that's untapped at your organization. A lot of times you can be collecting data relevant that'll help you solve even more problems, but you're not doing that. But soon what will be possible is you're going to have your generative AI that you're communicating with. You're going to have AI agents that are going to talk to other AI agents to solve a task. Those, it's like a little mini computer program. Those will be able to go and tell a machine learning model, hey, there's all this data here, go analyze it. So, there's a lot of talk now about, AI is going to, put people out of jobs. AI's, but the reality of the situation is we are scratching the surface of what is possible learning from data.
It's kind of scary when you talked about like AI agents talking with each other and solving problems.
Yeah.
And it's
yeah. This is another fear, but don't. It's not like that. It's So another reason too why I'm saying that everybody should learn and have no matter how good you know about AI, you should learn more, because it's not as scary as you think. A machine learning model is not as scary as you think. So many machine learning models, they're based on, some of them, the foundations are mathematics, statistics, and these are understandable. These are understandable concepts. And we as humans are the one telling these models what to do, definitely still at this point. So this type of progress also too is going to be incremental. It's not going to like your tomorrow night this happens. And humans are the ones who are going to be doing this, incremental progress. So the more, in my mind too, the more and more people that we have, there's certain people that maybe rightfully so, are talking about doomsday scenarios where you got the Terminator and the AI robots. Maybe they're talking this because it will be important to regulate AI. Make sure we know what we're doing. But this will happen over time, so I'm confident we'll do this.
Yeah, and it's actually scary in the sense that a lot of people will lose their jobs because of AI, which is, I mean, it's a fact. But I think they have to, learn new ways or learn how to adapt to this change.
So maybe this is something these countries, you're saying the GCC, I think they have a huge advantage because they have some of the resources to reskill their workers, the citizens. And maybe too, this is something I talk like this. So I have a very interdisciplinary background. Like I said, I went from map making to data analytics. I learned about databases. I went to AI. Some of this change for me is now at this point is not scary. What's coming next is not really scary to me because I've been through so much change in my life. Change is good, but change is scary, especially if you don't know what's coming. And what will be important is reskilling, reskilling people. What are the skills they have? What are the things that we can reskill them with that then they can be, contributors to the companies. And so even at Gulf Bank, I had a gentleman say this, with one of the things we were talking about doing, they're the ones wanting to do it. And they're saying, oh yeah, people are saying like, with this analytics task, oh, if you automate this, what's going to happen with jobs? And at least at this point in time, there is so much more they can do, so much more that these employees can do. So
if you had unlimited resources to solve like one task that you really want to work on, or what would it be if you want to implement AI for a big project or something that you're working on?
So I talked about my background in geospatial. I've talked about some of my work with satellite data, my work with AI, how AI can scale your solutions. You implement solutions, you let that AI scale it geographically, temporally, different types of features. So right now, there's one of the things that you hear, it's a buzzword, is a digital twin. Okay. So a digital twin is a digital replica of something in the real world. You have digital twins of machines. You have digital twins of buildings, building information management. You have digital twins of cities. Dubai is one of the leaders in a digital twin of a city. Singapore, Amsterdam, they're some of the leaders. So digital twins hold immense potential, and it's certainly not about having a model. You're not going to have sometimes they say, oh, I've got this digital twin, and it's just a static 3D model. This is not a digital twin. A digital twin has live data, real-time data. It allows humans to interact with data, run simulations, things like this. So even despite the leaders in some of these large-scale digital twins, there's still so much to do. But the potential of digital twins is immense. So, like I said, running simulations. So if we're a city and we have a digital twin and we have a heat wave coming, how is this going to impact our energy grid, our people, our water supplies, things like this? For a business, if I have a digital twin of a business and I have a cyber attack, what are the run simulations for what are going to be the effects of the simulation? The reason that there is so much left to do is this. I mean, it's a challenge. Okay, I'm going to make a digital twin of a city. I'm going to make a digital twin of a country. But we're making a lot of progress, especially with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is helping us with a lot of these tasks to create a digital twin. Create a digital twin that gets updated regularly because our world is changing regularly. And so from my perspective, given my background, I said my background, I have a lot of experience with data storage. I have a lot of experience with data analytics. I have a lot of experience with data visualization. Some of the newer technologies like augmented reality, virtual reality, some of these interfaces. I bet I could create a really good digital twin, given the time and the resources. So this is my, summary on that.
Okay. Do you think AI should be taught in schools?
So we don't know what's coming, honestly. Like things are changing rapidly. Even myself, I'm a little kind of like, on edge. What's coming next? AI should be taught as if it's as if it's math, as if it's biology. AI should be taught. Going back to this doomsday scenario. So in my mind, it's not going to happen. But for the people that think there's a percentage, there's a certain probability it will happen. The more people know about AI, the more people know about ethical practices of AI, what it can do, what it can't do, we will have billions of checks and balances, as AI progresses. So this will help this. Should AI be taught in school? Yeah, no doubt. And also too, especially with ethical use of AI, especially recent advances with generative AI, it's introduced a lot of problems in education, things like cheating. So in my mind, I don't know how, but AI will change inherently how we teach. And in my mind, for the better. So you have some students cheating on exams, but look at our exams, how we evaluate students. It's in academia, it's kind of like common knowledge. Some of the ways that we evaluate students they're not right. They have inherent flaws. You taking a multiple choice question has inherent flaws in judging your knowledge acquisition in this course, and also too, what you gained and whether you're going to be able to use that in the future to solve problems. We know some of the things are flawed. Maybe we didn't change maybe we're entrenched in this. Maybe there's lack of a better solution, to this. But if we have the problem, I think in my mind, maybe we come up with better solutions to teach, better solutions to evaluate students. I'm a big believer that people are learners. It's human nature to learn. Some people are these doomsday people that, AI will end the world. On the other end of the spectrum, you have this idea that people are like, AI is going to do everything for us. Robots are we're going to just kick back, relax, enjoy life. I feel like this will never happen because this is not in human nature. Human nature is to learn, to get better at things. So us, at this point in time, we have this amount of knowledge. Maybe too, at this point in time, we have the most knowledge in the history of our world. But who's to say there's not so much more knowledge we can gain by letting AI and machines speed up our knowledge acquisition? And most likely in my mind, we're going to be learning in ways that we can't think about right now. We can't imagine what are the ways we're going to be learning. So this is, maybe it's, I hope I'm right with this doomsday, kind of thing, but I'm optimistic, but things are changing and, in my mind, they're changing for the better. And going back to some of the things you're saying with, for example, you're saying, what can we do with AI in business? Can we do with AI learning, in learning? What can you do as an individual? So one of my favorite quotes of all time: when you're driving and you come to the fork in the road, take it. So the idea of this is rarely in life is there a black and white decision, a right or wrong decision. There's always shades of gray, and there's going to be a million decisions ahead of you. So you taking action, you going learning, you trying to do something with AI, is far better than sitting there saying, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. So this is my advice. When you come to the fork in the road, take it and take action.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for listening, and take care.